Next, we'll take a look at some statistics. The first statistics we'll look at are the campaign statistics. If you're using GreenArrow Studio or if you're injecting using mail classes, the stats will show up here in the same way. If you're using GreenArrow Studio, and if you've already watched that portion of this webinar, then these statistics will look very similar. We can see the overview for this campaign. We can see the total number of messages and how many succeeded and how many bounced and how many are still in the queue. If we used GreenArrow Monitor, we would be able to see a summary of those results for this campaign. And if we had any spam complaints, we would see those listed here, grouped by domain. Next, we can look into the bounces. GreenArrow groups any delivery failures into three primary categories: hard bounces, soft bounces, and other bounces. A hard and a soft bounce are problems with the recipient. A hard bounce is typically just an invalid email address. A soft bounces are things like a DNS failure or a full mailbox. These are problems that cause the message to fail this time and could continue to be a problem, but isn't necessarily for sure a long-term problem. So it takes a little bit longer to deactivate due to soft bounces. By default, we require at least 2 soft bounces over the course of 10 days. So for example, if you send me 2 messages today and they both soft bounce, it meets the 1 threshold of having at least 2 soft bounces, but it doesn't meet the 2nd threshold of at least 10 days. So I would not be deactivated today. It's relatively difficult to be deactivated due to a soft bounce. These are configurable values though, so if you'd like to have those adjusted, you can talk to your system administrator during the installation and we can get those adjusted for you. Other bounces are problems with the sender, which means we would never deactivate a subscriber due to an other bounce. If we look down below, we can see the bounce code breakdown. Other bounces are typically mail blocks for either reputation issues or blacklisting, or sometimes due to network issues. This bounce data down below is the exact same data as above, except it's grouped by domain. This can really help us start to see any potential deliverability problems that may need to be addressed in the system. We can see both Yahoo and Comcast have very high bounce rates, and there's a lot of other bounces. This can be a red flag for a potential deliverability problem that needs to be addressed. If GreenArrow Monitor had been used on this campaign, we would get the full stats for the inbox delivery rates. Covering that is not part of the scope of this webinar, so if you'd like more information, you can contact support or take a look at our documentation. The SMTP server stats page gives us the full detail of what happened when GreenArrow tried to deliver messages to the different ISPs. Here we can see the top 50 domains sorted by the total number of messages sent to each domain. In this example, Yahoo was the domain that we sent the most messages to. It represented 22% of the list, and we had a success rate of 52%. When a message is successfully delivered to the ISP, there's no additional data. It was just accepted and that's all we really know about it. But if there's a failure, you can see that this is now clickable. Likewise, for any messages that are still in the queue, or for messages that are deferred, we can click on that to get more information. This is the raw SMTP data that GreenArrow received when it tried to deliver a message to Yahoo. GreenArrow received this particular message almost 350,000 times. When reading the deferral message, you can see GreenArrow and Yahoo's different portions of the conversation. Here we see GreenArrow connected to Yahoo's IP address, but the greeting failed. The remote host, which is Yahoo in this case, said 421, and then it gave the TSO1, which is Yahoo's response code. And then it gives a message that's more human readable. Messages from your IP address are deferred due to user complaints, and then it gives a URL where we could go and look to get more information on what exactly this means. As we look down the list, we can see a number of different domains that have similar responses. Comcast was another one that we had problems with, and we can click on that and see very similar issues. In this case, Comcast was blocking the IP address for spam. There are a number of domains where we had 100% successful delivery. It's possible that they went to the bulk folder after they were accepted, but from these stats here, we don't know. That's where GreenArrow Monitor comes into play and can be very useful in seeing what's happening to your messages after they're accepted by the ISP. As we scroll down here, we can look at the additional domains, and at the very bottom, we can view the results for each individual email. Since this is just a demo campaign, the actual email addresses have been hidden. In your case, though, you'll see the actual email addresses that you sent to. You can also search for a specific email address if you want to see what happened to it. In this case, we can see that the message failed because of the deliverability issues, and it finally expired from the queue because it had been attempted for too long and never was delivered. The last tab here are the controls. For each campaign that comes into Engine, you can pause the delivery of the messages, or you can dump the queue entirely for this campaign. When you dump the messages from the queue for this campaign, it only impacts this campaign. The next statistics we have are the dynamic delivery stats. These statistics show what the ISPs are seeing coming from your IP addresses. So, looking at this one IP address, we can see that the recipient ISPs saw 957 new messages, 945 of those were accepted and 12 failed. These are obviously example statistics, so they're not particularly interesting. In your case, you may see some IP addresses with high failure rate or high deferral rate, and in those cases, you'll want to click on the IP address, and you can see all of the recipient domains that this IP has been sending to. And we can change the date range of how far back we look.